Happy birthday. All right. Check one, two.
Morning.
Check. Check.
I'm going to go ahead and get us started.
Check. Is it on?
So we have time. And this
Looks like I
is
feel like. Hello?
okay. So today we are having some folks from H.E.R.O, which is Metro Nashville Public Schools venture to help with homeless children in Davidson County. And we are excited today to have with us two folks from H.E.R.O, Sheila Decker, who is the outreach specialist, and Jamie Oakley, who is in charge of community partnerships. And I'm going to hand it over to Sheila, who's going to start us off.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Am I loud? Okay. My name is Sheila Decker. I work with the H.E.R.O program with Metro Nashville Schools, and I'm an outreach specialist. I joined the H.E.R.O program about 2.5 years ago, just trying to help grow the H.E.R.O program into whatever was next for the H.E.R.O program. For about 20 years, the H.E.R.O program was only a two-man show. So there was a lot of work being done, but it was a lot of work on only two people. So over the last 2 years, we've been able to get funding to grow the H.E.R.O program, and my position was the result of that. And now I go into the schools and work with the school staff just to try and help them educate them on resources that are available in Nashville to families that are struggling with housing insecurity. A lot of our families in Nashville struggle just because of affordable housing, lack of resources, not knowing about the resources. So today we'll just have a conversation about what our program looks like, how we're able to assist families in Nashville as they struggle with housing insecurity. Just to give you a little bit more background on myself, about 8 years ago, my daughter and I navigated the homeless system here in Nashville, while I also navigated breast cancer at the same time. So it was a lot to go through. It was the first time my family had ever been homeless. I didn't know the resources. I was new to Nashville, so I didn't know the city. We didn't have transportation. I didn't have a job. So just trying to figure out how to navigate everything that we were going through. I feel like God just put me in a place to experience things on the inside. So that He could put me in a position now to help families from a different and unique perspective. When I talk to families, I really know what it feels like to walk through the doors of the Nashville Rescue Mission for the first time and have no idea what is next for me and my daughter. So when I talk to families, I don't always share my story up front because I don't necessarily want my story to overshadow theirs or where they're at in their journey. But I feel like God leads me to talk to them just at the right time and share my experience in order to help them overcome what they're going through and recognize that where they're at right now is not forever. It's just for right now. And it's a stepping stone to whatever is next for them. So I am so grateful to be a part of the H.E.R.O program because we really do impact families directly. We do a lot of direct service. We have great resources in our H.E.R.O program, and those are some of the things that we'll talk about later. I have Jamie Oakley with me today. She does community partnership relationships in Nashville. She works with a lot of different organizations, so I'm going to let her come up and introduce herself.
Hey, everybody. Is this? Yeah. I'm Jamie Oakley, and I do develop community partnerships. So Sheila is out there doing a lot of the heavy lifting with families and helping people who are in schools learn how to best serve families. And my job is to keep our warehouse space stocked so that when Sheila comes back and says, okay, I have a family like yesterday that just got put into a situation where they're living in a motel for a bit. They've expended all of their resources for now, and they needed some food to get through the weekend. And I've got a pantry stocked with exactly that. hotel-friendly food. We've got everything from veggies to pasta to sauce and canned chicken, so families can feel like they're really eating meals, even if they just have a microwave in a hotel. So we have worked with Westminster Presbyterian quite a few times. Jackie knows our space really well and has done everything from drop off coats to bring in milk and eggs to connect me with parents at schools. We have a parent who's an Innsworth parent who keeps going in, and every quarter she'll grab the lost and found for us, which is really exciting because there's a lot of coats and khaki pants in there. So there's so many ways to work together. We do need things like gas cards, grocery cards are a big deal because we really like to, as I was saying with our pantry, we really like to be so intentional and give families what they need and what they want instead of just kind of what happens to be on our shelves. Transportation is a huge issue. Hopefully we're going to get a better mass transit system someday in Nashville, but right now it's really hard. And if Sheila's working with a family, we're not going to give them a phone number and say, oh, you should call the mental health co-op and figure that out. We are going to have a relationship with that community resource. We're going to know exactly what to tell them will happen when they make that phone call or when they walk in. And then we've got to figure out how are they going to get there. There's a lot of moving parts when you're in transition like our families are. And we really try to think of all of those moving parts. We had a group from Westminster, a youth group, come in this summer, and that was really fun. They just did some heavy lifting. When we have kids and teenagers come in, we have our space is really, sometimes you walk in and you think you're in an Amazon warehouse, right? It's full of school uniforms. It's full of shoes from Souls for Souls. It's full of hygiene products from the Community Resource Center. Books from Bookham. We really, the community really supports us well, but we often have a lot of just little things that need to get done. So we got those kids in there and we gave them a tour and we showed them a video and we had a talk and then we had them hauling some things around, which was really helpful. So I'm excited to work with you all even more. And yeah, there are a lot of ways. We really appreciate it. Go ahead.
All right. So the first thing we're going to do, we're just going to have a little discussion just so I can see what is your exposure to homelessness in Nashville? What are your experiences? What agencies are you familiar with? So if anybody wants to share a time that they have went to an agency and done some homeless outreach, been to the mission, throw out some names of agencies that you're familiar with that work with homeless resources. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. That program. Yeah, and that's one a lot of our churches are very familiar with. Room in the Inn is a great program in the city. They work to help families or help homeless individuals during the wintertime when there's very few access to shelter. A lot of our shelter is overwhelmed during the wintertime. So it's a really good program for Nashville. Anybody else familiar with any other agencies? Campus for Human Development. That's a new one I'm unfamiliar with. And something I say often in my job, I've been here for 2.5 years. Prior to this, it was COVID. So I worked at home distributing COVID funding through an agency to help people stay in housing. I still learn something new every day. And I still learn a new agency name every day. So say that again, Campus for Human Development. Great. Great. Anybody else? Yep, Salvation Army and OAS are two really good programs in Nashville. Salvation Army is actually the program that I stayed in when my daughter and I were going through homelessness. We were at the Nashville Rescue Mission for about 2 months. I actually started chemo at the Nashville Rescue Mission. And because of that, my family was prioritized because being in a congregate setting with over 100 other people while navigating chemo and homelessness. I mean, and cancer was kind of overwhelming. So being able to prioritize families that have extenuating circumstances, that have health conditions, that have disabilities. I work closely on a care coordination team each week for the city. We actually have a list of all the families in Nashville that are seeking housing services, and we're able to prioritize families on that list. So it's a really good thing that we're a part of, but the resources are definitely limited, and the families are much, much larger than the resources that we have available.
I was just going to bring up the importance. One of the things we really pride ourselves on is having these community partnerships with the groups that you all have mentioned. And Oasis made me remember something that happened this week, that we had our colleagues essentially from Oasis in, and we ended up finding a family that needed a crib that we happened to have there. And we worked with them on connecting a few other dots for that family. And then last week, we worked with the rescue mission, the Women and Children's Campus, and we had every family at the rescue mission come in and get to experience back to school shopping. So they got to come in with their caregivers, their moms, and whoever they were staying with, and shop for new shoes and get 2 new school outfits and get registered for school. And we did it in such a way, everyone had their own personal shopper, and it was fun. It was really joyful. Kids picking out new shoes you can even make teenagers smile when you're doing that. So it was really fun.
And then imagine they're free for
Right.
the parents, right? Because even as a kid, when you go to a shop, like you have your parents' voice in the back of your head, I can't afford that, right? But our kids walk away with Reeboks and brand new Nikes and Air Force Ones. I mean, we have all kind of shoes that are donated to us through our partner with Souls for Souls. It's a great partnership. But yeah.
It's really beautiful. And as a result of all of that talking, you can bond with another mom while you're picking out school clothing. And we had one family in particular who was here, and dad was staying at the mission, and mom and the kids, including a 17-year-old boy, were staying at the Women and Children's Mission. And long story short, we worked with another partner of ours, Dream Streets, that just opened some transitional housing. And on Thursday, we were able to move them into one room together. They're not having to pay any rent until mom and dad's job stabilize. We sent them with all their shoes and their clothes and food for the weekend. And so we do a lot of work. We do a lot of big work, but the Nashville community is so supportive that talking to all of these other different groups, including groups like you guys and the church, that's the real game changer, I think, when we can all come together.
Yep.
So that's my 2 cents.
So has anyone ever been to the Nashville Rescue Mission and actually volunteered or donated anything? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know they have a lot of different volunteer opportunities. I know Salvation Army has a lot of great volunteer opportunities. So what are some of the stereotypes that you think exist around homelessness? Do you think it doesn't happen to people I know? Yeah, they must be lazy. They must have a drug problem. They can't take care of their kids, right? Yeah, they're dangerous, dirty. Yeah, they have mental illness. Fathers are absent, right? We saw this week how a father isn't absent, but he was forced to be because he had to be at the men's mission. There's nowhere for a father and for a 2-parent household to have, unless you're referred to a safe haven shelter or a Salvation Army shelter, there's no immediate shelter you can go to and keep your family unit together in Nashville. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And I mean, children and families are one of the hidden faces of homelessness, right? If you're a parent and you lost your home, the last thing you want to do is tell somebody, because you don't know if they're going to take your kids away. They're going to blame you. All of the stereotypes that we just named. They can't take care of their kids. They must have a mental health issue. Maybe they're on drugs. But none of those were the case with my family, right? I just had a financial setback, and then I had a health issue, and I didn't want to tell anybody about either one. But I didn't have any of those stereotypes, right? I was just afraid because we all judge people without even knowing it, right? So what do you think are some of the causes? We talked about some of the stereotypes, but what do you think are some of the specific causes? Medical crisis. Yep. Yep, a ripple effect. Because there was one bill that crept up this week that your family had to take care of in order to keep your car running. Brakes aren't cheap. Tires aren't cheap. Transmission isn't cheap. But if you can have a car and maintain that car, and then one thing goes wrong with it, how do you afford $750 for a brake job this week? You don't. But there are great agencies that we also partner with. There's a new agency that sprouted up over the last couple of years called Mechanics on a Mission out of Murfreesboro. And they do free maintenance on cars. They also give away cars to families in need. There's a church here in Nashville that also does car giveaways. So there are programs and agencies and partners that we're always looking for. We're always working to build these resources for our families. So when a family calls our social worker at their school and says, I'm losing my house this week, what can I do? That social worker automatically knows where to refer them to, who to call, the paperwork to fill out, and how to make a warm handoff referral instead of just giving them a phone number to call and say, they might answer. If they don't leave a message, wait for somebody to call you or send an email. That's not instant help. That only plagues a family with more. Now I've got to wait for somebody to call me. I've got to do the follow-up. I could call somebody and leave a message 3 or 4 or 5 times over a week. They're inundated with calls like mine. Who do they call first? So it's really a difficult system to navigate, not only for providers, but for families as well, right? So we're gonna do a little video. It's about 10 to 15 minutes. And basically this video talks about the hidden faces of homelessness.
I am
not being homeless enough to receive assistance. Last year, we ended the school year with almost 4,500 students that were enrolled in the H.E.R.O program. That was a 27% increase over the year before. We ended the previous year with about 3,600. We have about 80,000, around 80,000. Well, yeah, we do believe it's a combination. Of course, our team has grown. We're educating staff on how to identify families, what the resources are, how to make referrals to the H.E.R.O program. So of course, identification is going to go up. But honestly, we believe that there are probably about 6,000 to 8,000 students in the school system that are homeless. And so about half of those students have still yet to be identified, right? We see evictions are on the rise. There is no more COVID funding. There are no more eviction moratoriums that keep people in their homes. A lot of real estate developers are moving to and pushing people out of their homes. And if you are evicted, generally speaking, that unit is lost to affordable housing because they know they can increase the rent without any rent controls. It's a landlord-friendly state, so there's no notice that you have to give to a tenant to increase their rent. There's no cap on how much you can increase it. So I could get a notice today that next month my rent is going up $400, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So my only choice is to pay or find a cheaper place. But think about the moving costs that go into finding another place, the deposit, the move. basically you're forced to stay where you're at and try to figure out how to pay that extra $400 a month, right? So we're going to watch this. It'll show a lot of our families that do not qualify for funding, do not qualify for HUD programs because they're not living in a shelter environment and they're not considered literally homeless. These are families that are paying for a hotel for themselves, but you get stuck in that cycle. You never can save money and you never can move unless you have some agency step in and help you. But because you're paying for it yourself, you're not considered homeless. If you move in with your best friend and their children because you can't afford your housing anymore and you're couch surfing and sleeping in an extra bedroom, or you guys have pallets on the floor, you're housed. HUD funding doesn't qualify those families to receive assistance for programs that receive HUD funding. So it's a lot of our families do live under the radar just because there's not assistance for them, right? So we're really working with our national partners to try and develop prevention resources. And that was one reason why we met with OASIS this past week, to try and help develop a referral program for prevention. So we help families before they ever become homeless and then have to navigate that system. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I don't know if we have a shortage of social workers in our school system, but I do know that I work closely with a lot of my social workers in the Southeast quadrant. That was the quadrant that I was covering last year. I had about 30 schools. In those 30 schools, we had about 2,000 students that were homeless. And we have a huge immigrant homeless population too, right? So finding resources for those families that come here searching for something better, and we have very limited resources for the people that already live here, it's even more difficult for us to help that population too. But yeah, it's a real struggle. We work really closely with our social workers to try and share this information. So if they have a family sitting in front of them, they don't have to call me to figure out what to tell them. They already know. And that's really, really what we've been working on the last year and a half, trying to increase that awareness for school staff.
I've always thought that. I mean, it's really good to know. And at one point, the legislation, I think, was one social worker for 5,000 students. Sometimes it's 2,500 in a high school setting. The national standard is 1 to 250. It's really complicated, and our legislature just isn't valuing that and is not giving us the number of social workers that we need. Yes. It's really, I mean, the underfunding is a major issue in the school system. And so one of the things we can do and we pride ourselves on is for all of those overworked social workers, at least they're not, in our case, when they're dealing with a HERO student, running out and spending their own money and their own time trying to track down a new pair of tennis shoes or khaki shorts for a kid. They can just email Jamie, and, you know, our MNPS internal mail system can get those items there. So that's the sort of the, in addition to trying to influence legislation to get more money and more funding for those things. It really is a key piece. It's a big deal. If we had more social workers, things would be a little bit different.
I think one of the biggest calls we get probably during the school year is air mattresses. You know, families move out of their housing, everything has to go in storage. They don't know where they're going next. They end up at another family member's house, or they end up in a hotel room that only has one bed, but is a parent and 4 kids. So a lot of that's like one of our biggest requests is air mattresses.
And so when social workers call us for these things, one of the other things that I work on is keeping what we call our HERO family fund full of just some money. I try to keep it full of about $10,000 a year so we can go buy those things when we need them. Because
immediately.
Every family's experience of homelessness is different, right? So you can't just say, okay, homeless families need this, 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 and this, because it's different every time. Last
Yeah.
week, one of the boys, we told him that when it came time for soccer tryouts in the spring, we were going to be able to buy him cleats, and he lit up. He was so excited. And these are the things that keep kids in school too, right? These are the things that keep kids going. So being able to have that fund to buy those little things is important also.
Yep.
Okay.
I think we're ready for the
Talk
video.
forever, you guys.
I am not a gap in the system. I am not in the system. That's right. I am not even counted as
It was working before.
a gap in the system. I am not in the system. That's right. I am not even counted as homeless because I don't fit the definition. If not like that,
I've been staying from hotel to hotel for almost 3 months. I done spent over $7,000, $8,000 paying for hotels. My children got in trouble with police issues. Had nothing to do with the resident.
I think maybe expanding it might be.
For as a
Maybe expanding. Yeah. I didn't even think about downloading it first.
And I was checking out, so I answered the phone rudely and said, I hate when you do that. I'm clearly busy. He said, Sarah, stop. The house is on fire. Come home. And then when I pulled up, of course, everybody's out at their house looking at our house, and our house is burning down. So just like that, we were homeless.
I had a house, but I ended up moving out of the house because the landlord was a slumlord and he wasn't fixing anything. So I had to go step.
So I had trouble. We had to move out the place that we lived in for 8 years. I was incarcerated. My son was supposed to live with his mother.
And thankfully for Red Cross, they have a program and you get like $100 per person. We did call every organization that is there to help people, but we got a no every single time. There was not one place that helped us with anything, not even a list of like, what's it, like, there just is nothing available. There's no programs just because your house burned down. There's just nothing. We proceed to have 1.5 Val. So my brother was nice enough to let us on his couch. But again, there's 7 of us. So we stayed with him for a few weeks. My husband's aunt called us crying and actually begged us to live with her. And she had a really nice, huge, nice house, and we could go back to normalcy. And as soon as we actually had our stuff there, it was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It was the most disturbing month of my life. And then we ended up with my mom in a 2-bedroom trailer. But should I go to bed at 6 o'clock at night? Oh, whatever. It worked. I'm certainly not going to complain about it because we would have had nowhere.
It was hard. I mean, she had a 3-bedroom house, but it was hard because we was all in one room because there was other people staying with her too. The room was a lot smaller than this room.
Hey, I'm trying to keep a job, be homeless, maintain my children and myself at the same time, look for a place, do this, do that. You can't do all that.
Right.
Almost.
To shut the bathroom door, but you can do that for long because there's only one bathroom. You know, they were all sharing a room. Technically, there was 5 kids in a bedroom. I could have probably had them taken from me. Like you're walking on eggshells the whole time. You don't want to upset the person whose house you're taking over. And because there's 7 of us, we really are taking over their house. Of course, at some point, my kids will fight. And then are they going to be mad and kick us out? And you know it's temporary, so you don't want to get too comfy. So you're kind of just in limbo waiting for something. It's who wants to rent to someone with 5 kids?
It's not easy living in a hotel and not having a lot of space.
I've filled out application after application after application. And every time it's a turn down. It's either the credit, or I got a bad reference from the landlord.
I'm looking, but it's been hard, especially me having a fiction on my background. And the credit thing is a big deal too.
I have a small storage unit with all of the clothes and shoes and other items, and what's not in storage is in my van. The storage unit is $55 a month. You're still taking money that could be used for. But if I don't want to lose any of my items, I have to pay it. I mean, it's papers, birth certificates, social security, tax papers, everything. My life in my van and my storage.
It's like $59. All 4 of my kids are. So, yeah, they love it. I appreciate anything that they do for us.
The schools have been amazing to my kids. They've helped them. Unfortunately, my older ones are not bonded with anybody. I don't really have friends. We stayed with my mom for a year and 2 months. In a little 2-bedroom trailer that was extremely difficult. My mom likes her own space. She'd gotten used to being alone. But she did her best. She was very welcoming to us. That's how it is really hard to find a place to live, especially for my family size. Like you just can't find houses for rent.
Now, I promised God, I said, hey, if I'm able to give back to my son, I will sacrifice whatever it is, make sure that I can provide a safe space for my son at all costs. So that's what I did. I was determined to do whatever was necessary to make sure that I can provide.
That are homeless in these hotels that I go to, and I feel so bad.
I'm trying to look into like housing or Section 8 or something. Maybe if I like my situation.
But put a key in to a place of my own. Sometimes I don't know if I'm comfortable, but I don't know any other way but to be strong for my children, because if I'm not strong for them, then nobody's any good.
Have a place where my son is safe, where he could come home and feel good. He can come home to his bedroom. He's also that right there means a lot. That means a lot to me. That I know it means a lot to me.
All right. So how many of those stereotypes did we see in that video? A lot of them, right? No. Um, I didn't see very mental health issues, or I didn't see very many drug issues. I didn't see very many people not trying to take care of their kids. I saw families that were struggling to stay together and trying to overcome those stereotypes. Okay, so I just want to get some of your reactions and your wonderings about this video. It talks about the hidden face of homelessness, right? I said before the video that we had almost 4,500 students last year that we helped in the H.E.R.O program. About 85% of those students don't qualify for assistance through funding. They're doubled up or in motels. So only about a few hundred to less than 1,000 of those families that are in our system are actually in programs that can help them move into something better, something that's not as overwhelming as homelessness, right? So what did you guys think about the video? Any thoughts on, yeah. It's depressing to watch and imagine being in the situation, right? That single father, all he wanted was for his son to do better. He had an arrest record, he had a history, right? But he just wanted to do better and see better for his son. In Nashville, we have no homeless shelters for single fathers to go to. So, you know, it's a struggle for a lot of different people. And like Jamie said earlier, like there's no cookie cutter approach to homelessness, right? All of these families are individual, and that's really what we work and strive to see, a family that's in front of us and their needs that are in front of us, and us try and address those needs for that specific family and help them navigate it. And a lot of those, that's one circumstance that prioritizes a family, right? If you're a dad and you walk in a shelter and you have 4 kids with you, I mean, hopefully someone would prioritize his family to at least get into a safe haven or Salvation Army program. But those rooms stay filled. And as soon as the family moves into housing, another family is moving right into that transitional room. Is there anything that's, yes, ma'am? Yeah. No. Yep. Well, there's a lot of different factors that go into that consideration. Income is one, because income is what qualifies you for Section 8, right? So if you add an adult to your household who adds an income and that takes you over the limit, then you have about 6 months for that to change before you lose your voucher completely. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and her question I'll just share with everybody, just in case you didn't hear, is how difficult is it to get on a Section 8 waiting list? And how difficult is it to get into Section 8 housing? One of the things that Nashville's working to do is build the Landlord Initiative Program, where they increase incentives for landlords to join accepting a Section 8 voucher. It is very difficult for you to find housing with Section 8 voucher in Nashville. Last year, I worked personally with a family that it took me 4 or 5 months for her to finally get into an apartment. Once she got into that apartment, there was mold and there were rats. So within 3 months, she left. I'm not gonna stay here. She went back into her car. You know, we don't have any control over the inspections. It passed inspection. How? We don't know. But there are issues that plague these families repeatedly, even when you have assistance to help you move into somewhere else. 4-bedroom houses in Nashville is very difficult to come by. If you have a family with 5 or 6 children, you definitely have to have a 4-bedroom house. So it's a lot of stereotypes. Section 8 waiting lists are very difficult to get onto. The waiting lists that we have here in Nashville are available to families that are in the shelter system, but not families that are doubled up on somebody's sofa. And it takes months for you to get all your paperwork. If you lost your housing and you lost your storage and you don't have Social Security cards and birth certificates, if you were born in Wisconsin, how do you get all that stuff down here? It takes a lot of time for families to navigate these programs. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Yep. Yep. And your credit's ruined, right? Yeah, no, I think that's really something that a lot of lower income families, middle income families struggle with credit and accessing transportation in general. So car loans is really, really difficult across the board. But when you have evictions on your credit and car repossessions, all of that affects your housing, right? Nobody's going to rent to you. So, all right. We're going to flip because I know we don't have a lot of time left. I just want to go over some of these handouts that we passed on. So this first one right here that has the circles all over it. Yes, I do have a couple more. So this just gives, she needs one in the back. No, that's okay. So this basically just goes over some of the specific ways that H.E.R.O is able to help families that are experiencing homelessness. Students that qualify for the H.E.R.O program in general lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. So if you cannot afford your electricity and your electricity has been turned off for a week and a half now, that is considered inadequate housing for our program, right? So there are a lot of different circumstances that will qualify a family for the H.E.R.O program. One of the unfortunate things that we don't have access to is housing. And that's one of the hardest things to say no to a family. We don't have funding for hotel rooms. We don't have funding to pay your rent. But we do have referral partners, and that's where we work to build these programs to help refer people to warm handoff referrals, like I was mentioning before. So we have a name and a phone number and a face to connect that person with, right? So you're not just calling a phone number or sending an email. You'll see that all of our students have the right to immediately enroll in school. So even if they have 0 paperwork, mom has an ID, she can walk in and enroll all of her children in school because we try and eliminate all those barriers. We do housing referrals and we advocate for families in the care coordination meeting. Anytime that I have a family that has been referred for a shelter, a lot of times phone numbers are cut off. They can't keep their phone on. They've changed their number in the last week because their phone was shut off and they turned it on and they didn't have access to that number again. So I'm able to connect directly with the schools and say, hey, this family was referred for housing last week. Nobody's heard from them in 2 weeks, but I know they have a student in your school. Can you please connect with them this afternoon and get a good phone number, right? We have that immediate access to families. Jamie said last week we hosted families from the mission that came in. They got brand new backpacks, school supplies, brand new shoes, 2 new school outfits, socks, underwear. We provide belts. We provide hygiene products. We have taken on hygiene kits that help women with feminine products, that help African-American families with hair care products, immigrant families that may need something special, that we can go out and buy those things with the H.E.R.O fund that Jamie was talking about. We have a lot of families that come in, their children have eczema and they have sensitivities to laundry powders. We can go and buy skin sensitive laundry powder. Like, there are very unique things that we try and really help our families when they have these unique circumstances that arise for us to help them. Some of the things, another thing is special transportation. Our families' lives may be in chaos, but we try and keep their school setting in as little chaos as possible. So sometimes that family may move out of zone and they can't get back to that school. H.E.R.O program is able to set up transportation and go and pick that student up every day from wherever they move to and take them and keep them in that school that they were going to. Let's see. Well, Jamie mentioned winter coats and household items. Those are some things that we connect with church programs, private schools here in Nashville. We collect a lot of winter coats, a lot of winter items. We did a towel drive with the church recently, and the church collected towels, hand towels, and wash rags, and they taped them all up in bundles of 4. And every time we had a family move into housing, I was able to show up with a set of 4 or 8 towels. And that's one less thing that a family has to worry about, going and figuring out, how am I going to take a shower today? Because now I don't have any towels. So those are just some of the things that we really work towards to try and help our families navigate here in Nashville. One of the things that you'll see, we also have a partner pantry, a H.E.R.O pantry partner flyer that talks about our food pantry. And Jamie might want to come up and share a little bit more about some of the resources that we always try and connect with our church families and private partners.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning, we would love to work more with the congregation. There's a lot of things that we need to collect that are sitting around in houses, like winter coats and outgrown school uniforms, things like that. And then there are things that we need to have drives for, like new underwear is a big deal. I talk to Jackie about this all the time. It's one of our biggest expenses, because obviously we're not collecting gently used underwear, because that's not, not something that we do. And so we have very few things, the gas cards, some grocery items that actually we need to host drives or raise funds for. But a lot of things, when you see them pop up, like a towel drive, right? You all know when towels, you're just switching things out in your bathroom, but you have something that's perfectly good. We like to work with groups and do something really specific like that. So as I work with Will and work with Jackie, and you see these things pop up around the church, you'll know where they're going and that we're really doing a good job of using them. Yeah. That's right. It's just an addition. And also there's United for Hope, right? That you guys are partners with Cockrell and Lawson, right? Which all of that is sort of an addition. And the H.E.R.O program can sort of be treated as a school, even though we have 4,500 students and they're in every school. And so we're just an additional partner in that same setting. And we work with Pencil as well. That's where we get a lot of our school supplies. If they have a partner come in and say, hey, we're having a convention here in Nashville and we want to do a backpack packing event with our 1,000 employees, they'll call me and say, okay, what do you need for your H.E.R.O students? Because those students are the priority and they pack backpacks for us. So we're all in it together. Yeah.
Yep. So the H.E.R.O program, once a student enrolls and is referred to the H.E.R.O program, and we approve that they qualify for our program, they retain that H.E.R.O status through the end of the school year, regardless of if they move into housing, because we know that a lot of our families move in housing before they're ready, right? So they may move into housing, but 3 or 4 months later, they may be right back at their aunt's house or their grandmother's house or in a shelter. So retaining that H.E.R.O status throughout the school year is important, just to help families know that they do have that support. But during the summer, all of our families are closed out for the year. And then in July, we work to recertify every single family. So that's why we connect with the schools, make sure they go over previous HERO lists, connect with those families, see if they are still in housing transition. They have to resubmit forms. So between generally July 1st and the first day of school, we enroll 400 to 500 students, and usually by the end of August, we're already at 1,000, because a lot of our families stay in transition through that school, through the summer, but they just lose that HERO status. So.
And then once a family is in a situation, say they are doubled up, but they're doubled up at the same place, once they hit a 2-year mark, we call that regular, because our definition is that they lack access to a regular, adequate nighttime residence. And so once you've been somewhere for 2 years, you kind of fall out of that category. And partly for that reason, we then continue to rely on social workers and the counselors and all the folks in the school system who can help these children, no matter if they're in the HERO program or not. And we have a 501c3 that supports the HERO program. It's called Unicycle because it started as a uniform recycling program, but that program also disregards HERO status and can help any student. So we have ways that we can sort of continue support even when a family outruns that 2-year time limit.
Yep.
When families are ready, we have lots of different agencies we can give them a warm handoff to, and we work with a caseworker through St. Luke's. She offices in our space 2 or 3 days a week, and it has to be the right time for the family, or else it just feels ridiculous. And it's just one more thing. But when it is the right time, it's really critical, and it's important to have a really strong relationship. And so.
Yeah, and that's one of the aspects of being referred to Samantha. She works with us, and she's a she's caseworker basically for HERO families. The unfortunate part is she can only take on about 10 to 15 families, right? So when you have 4,500 students out there trying to navigate it, that's really when we rely on those referral partners to really try and, you're no longer HERO, but let's find you some supports to try and help you manage where you are in your journey. Samantha, a part of that program is financial empowerment, job readiness, helping the family get document ready for moving in. All of those things come with fees. I think the only thing that's free is maybe a social security card, but that's still a lengthy process. Birth certificates cost money, having them expedited. If you get approved for a house today and they want all of your documents by next week, we may even pay an extra $45 to get those documents so you don't lose access to that housing that you got approved for. So the HERO Family Fund is just a way for us to really access funding without having those restrictions that a lot of programs place on HUD funding that are reserved specifically for families that are in a shelter type setting. Yes, sir.
You can write a check to the HERO program, or I can send a link. I'll send it to Will and he can share with the group. Yeah, does that make sense, Will? And that is huge. And I will share, I think you guys will appreciate, I'm very transparent about where that money goes. It is very individual. And one of my favorite things, Sheila was talking about a family who got housing and they had a baby, and it was the single mom with these kids, and we worked with them all year, and they finally moved into the apartment, and Sheila was there helping them, bringing some things from our office. And the mom realized quickly there was no shower curtain, so no one could take a shower that night. There were a couple of other things, and
Yep.
I was able to say, Sheila, go to Walmart.
Yep.
Go do that right now. And she went to Walmart, and she probably spent, I want to say, like $120.
Yep.
It was done. And then before she left, we talked again and said, Sheila, please order them pizza. It's move-in night. That's what you do the night you move, right? You have pizza in the living room on the floor. That's a move-in night. And so it's those little things that they really add up, you know?
Yeah,
It's
we
a big
sat there,
deal.
we pumped up 3 air beds in the living room, and the kids were great. Mom was 9 months pregnant at the time. She had her baby, and it was great, but it was overwhelming all at the same time. Now, how does mom get a job? She's got a newborn baby and an 11-year-old and a 10-year-old, right? So homelessness touches everyone, regardless of your status, regardless of your income, regardless of your ethnicity or your race. It can touch you. And a lot of times we're just so removed from the conversation that we don't realize that our neighbor is struggling to pay their rent or keep their lights on today, right? And just because they don't live beside you does not mean they're not still your neighbor, right? So I think that's
Yeah.
pretty
if you
much all that
guys-
we have.
We would love to stay connected. And if
yeah.
you all have any other ideas about things you would like to do that are of particular interest, or we have one group from another church partner, and they come in the first Monday of the month for 2 hours and do what needs to be done that day. You never know what it's going to be.
Yep.
So we can talk about all different kinds of things. We would love to. Yeah.
And the flyers that I passed out are things for you to take home. And it just gives you a lot more insight into our needs and the different types of drives that we can do, foods that we put in our food pantry. You see here on the back of this circle form, you see we have different ways that you can help. This is as an individual, as a community, as a church. Sometimes we have schools that get together and do drives. We have neighborhoods that get together and do drives. We have drop-offs for clothing all over the city. So schools have drop-off sites, different partners in the community. I'll email both of these flyers to Will. So if you didn't get a copy, you can, or if you misplace your copy, you can always access that. And Jamie will send some more information to share with you about the H.E.R.O program and the H.E.R.O Family Fund and how you guys can help us.
Go ahead. You guys have 2 questions.
That the program has right now, that our community here.
Yeah, I think quickly we could do a gas card or an underwear
I was
drive.
gonna say underwear.
Underwear. I say it all the time. The other day I went to speak at a dinner, and I left with a woman was like, I'm carrying around underwear in my car right now. I'm going to give it to you. And I just laugh at myself. I have this like Paw Patrol underwear. People are, little boy underwear in my car all the time, but it's a big deal.
And you don't really realize how difficult it is to come across clean clothing, right? But I mean, our families, they're living in their cars. We don't have very many that live in encampments, but we do have a few that live in encampments, living in a shelter. How do you get access to clean your kids' clothing every day? Like at home, we take advantage of that. We can just go through it in the wash machine. But when they come to us and we can only give them 2 pair of underwear, because we have so many families to serve, like new underwear is generally one of
Feels
our
good.
biggest needs. And it feels good for me to go into Unicycle in our library, and I have a family that I'm packing for, and grab a pack of underwear and give them a pack for the whole week. That way mom doesn't have to worry about on Wednesday, what is my child gonna wear under the clothes today, because they've used the 2 pair that I had for them, right? So
Jackie, did you have one more question or comment?
Things, if you think about them, like cleaning out your house, and you put them in that bin that's in the parlor, not in the parlor, but in the, post yard. We always decide whether there's things we can do on our schools or we need to do. And that's what we've been reading with our department. We usually see it. So a lot of things that people already did. That doesn't answer the question about the money. You're doing some money to your needs. There's
and I'll share just one other story with you. Last year, we had an immigrant mom that was here, and she had a 10-year-old boy, and she was giving birth, but they were living in a room in a house, and she had no baby clothes. She had no furniture. And the agency was able to help her get a car seat and a stroller. They were able to help her get a pack and play. And she texted me one day and she said, I'm going in to have my baby on Monday. This is on a Wednesday. And she's like, I literally don't even know what I'm going to bring her home from the hospital in. And I called Jamie, and Jamie's like, go to Walmart. And I spent $100 with the card that I have in my pocket, always ready. And I bought her some receiving blankets. I bought her a couple of newborn outfits to bring the baby home in. And I bought her some onesies and some diapers. And she was able to come home and not have to worry about, you know, what am I going to bring my baby home in? So like the assistance that we are able to help families with, it is very direct. We are getting phone calls and we are going to the store and we are dropping it off. It is not, you've got to fill out a form, you've got to email it, you've got to wait for somebody to respond. A lot of the assistance that we give families when they call us, we try and respond because they wait on so much. We want to give them an opportunity to say, that agency doesn't make me wait, right? That agency comes through. When I make a phone call and I don't know what's next for that request, they help us and it's immediate and it's direct. So we appreciate all the contributions that you guys make to Nashville in general. This is not a H.E.R.O problem. It is not an MMPS problem. It is a worldwide problem. And we're doing our best to just solve it in Nashville for right now. But we appreciate y'all welcoming us in and just listening to my story, what Jamie was able to talk about, and you know, just helping us help families in Nashville.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank y'all so much. I'm going to close this in prayer because I know some folks are wanting to get off to the 11 o'clock service. So let us pray. Gracious, holy, loving God, we are grateful for this opportunity to learn more about our community and the wonderful work being done by H.E.R.O, Sheila, Jamie, and others. Continue to bless them in their work and especially be with all those experiencing homelessness. Lord, let our hearts be moved too by the staggering reality of how many homeless neighbors we have. Let it convict us toward action, embolden us with your spirit so that we can help these neighbors in need. For we remember your words, especially today. Truly, I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it to me. We ask all these things in your Son, our Savior's name. Amen.